one of the biggest aviation disasters in Indian history when we lost the first jumbo jet. After gaining some height, he was supposed to turn left. The pilot felt that the left wing is going low. So he started correcting for it. Artificial horizon is showing this kind of bank, but he is not believing in that. He is still trying to correct it. And the aircraft went into the sea. Everybody was killed. Civil aviation also lays as much stress on safety than does military aviation. When a person has only seen emergencies in simulators, this person is very likely to be unable to handle an actual emergency. Some of the biggest problems military pilots face when they enter civil aviation is that they suffer a great deal because they are loyal to the company. Trait of being loyal to the company where you are serving is exploited by the civilian operators. Another tragic accident, an aircraft coming in from Abu Dhabi or somewhere in UAE or Middle East country, crashed in Mangalore and everybody died. And the co-pilot, realizing that it's a very dangerous approach and he should go around, could not tell him. This issue of captain and first officer relationship is an acknowledged global problem.
Namaste. My name is Neena Rai, and I am the author of the books Amazing Ayodhya and Adbhut Ayodhya. Today, on the power table, we have with us Colonel Shailendra Sharma. Colonel Shailendra Sharma, apart from being in the army and flying for civil aviation, has been a prolific writer, writing for periodicals, writing for articles, and even attempting writing for Wikipedia. He is also a defense expert. So, welcome, Colonel Sharma.
Thank you, Neena ji. That was a very nice introduction, but personally, I am a little chary of being called an expert, especially a defense expert. Because defense, as you know, is a very, very vast and a very complex field.
Correct.
And it encompasses not just military, it encompasses economy, it encompasses international relations, it encompasses logistics, and pretty much every facet of human endeavor is involved in security and safety. I don't think anybody is a defense expert.
So, in that way, nobody can ever be called an expert. If
Yes,
going by
yes.
your standards of what expertise should be, then
Yeah.
I don't think so anybody is fit to be
Should
called an expert.
this is my personal view
Yeah,
that
sure.
it is
Yeah.
it is too vast a subject for anybody to be an expert in.
Okay.
People can be expert in certain facets of it.
Certain, of course, of course.
Yeah.
So, my first question to you is what inspired you to join the Indian Army and as a pilot? See, generally, when we discuss about pilots, they tend to either go to the Air Force, but you've joined the Indian Army as a pilot. And what was your experience like?
See, firstly, why did I join the army? So, when I was a small boy, I had just finished the exam of class 3 and I joined class 4 in Ajmer, and the summer session used to be the big holidays for us. June, July used to be holidays. And in June, July, during those holidays, my father took me to an exam center where I was made to write exams in general knowledge and maths, English. And later on, I came to know it was the entrance exam for Scenic schools.
Oh,
Yeah, and in 61, Scenic schools started. I had just gone into class 4, and Scenic schools were starting with class 5. But I passed the exam. So, after spending 1 month in class 4
you
in my school in Ajmer,
see, you had a double promotion.
I went to Scenic School Chittorgarh in class 5. And anybody who studies in Scenic schools, it is mandatory for them to write the NDA exam.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, the parents have to pay the complete lodging, boarding, and fees of all training and education,
Wow, I didn't
free,
know
which is
that.
free for Senate school students. Otherwise,
Okay, okay.
so those who don't want to join the army, they purposefully fail the NDA exam, for
Oh,
which there is no audit. But I passed the NDA exam, and because of that double promotion I had had, I was underage for
correct.
two courses.
Yeah.
So then I joined the NDA in the 40th course. And from NDA, it was like you're put in a river which goes to the sea. So we joined the defense services as a pilot. Sorry, not as a pilot. I wanted to join the Air Force,
Oh, okay.
but I am a very short statured fellow,
Uh-huh.
and my well wishers and my teachers,
Uh-huh.
they advised me that if you, because when you write the NDA exam, entrance exam, you're required to give your option whether you're writing for Air Force, Army, or Navy.
All right.
Okay, so they said that if you opt for Air Force, you'll have to undergo an Air Force medical exam.
Correct. You have to have perfect vision
Yeah,
and
everything. And I was concerned about my height and especially the leg length.
of course
For
because for
pilots, you
pilots
require
you
100 centimeters of leg length.
uh-huh.
And I was, perhaps not meeting that requirement. So they said that you
Must
go
go
into the army
and
and then you can join the army's flying stream
fantastic. Huh.
because they also have aviation.
Uh-huh.
That's how I joined the army and went into helicopter flying.
I had friends of mine who they are pilots, and I remember this one story of one of my friends. He's not an Indian, and he said he used to be a very violent kid. He used to be indulged in lots of street fights, and his dream was to become a pilot. And like you're talking about this, he said it was really his dream to be a pilot. Then one day his father sat him down and said that if you ever get into a street fight and somebody hits your eye,
Yeah,
you'll never
no, become
accomplish
a
your
pilot,
dream to
yes.
become a pilot. He says from that day, people who are so passionate, he says from that day he stopped getting into altercations. He changed his whole lifestyle. So I know the passion that pilots have, and the young kids, they will do anything to achieve their aims.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic to know. And
And
what was your experience like?
I want to tell you, uh, all of us during our life, we have some moments which give you a lot of joy. You know, equally there are some moments which give you a lot of, sadness or anger or something. In my life, the biggest moment, the moment that gave me the maximum joy was when I was undergoing the medical for becoming an army pilot,
Oh,
and they measured my leg length
huh. And you made the
and
cut.
they said 100 centimeters.
So you
So that
made
was
the
the
cut
biggest.
by the exact.
Exact, exact. And I used to be short enough because the aircraft seat, why
Huh.
they have this limitation is because your feet should reach the pedals,
Correct.
isn't it? And you
Correct.
should be able to see outside the cockpit.
Correct. Correct.
So, in my initial training on the fundamental training trainer aircraft, I had to use cushions, two cushions and thing. And initially, also while flying helicopter, I was using cushions. Then technology made seats go up and down and forward and backwards.
But in your day, it wasn't
Perhaps
there.
that was done for me.
Oh.
So then I was all
Okay,
right.
okay, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Many people don't know that even for flight attendants, because I've been one,
Yes.
you have to have a minimum height requirement. And the
Yeah,
reason is that if you're not tall enough, you cannot take the security equipment which is kept
exactly. And
on the
that,
upper portions,
yes.
right? And you have to close all the cabinets above you. So the security equipment is kept in the cabinets in certain places.
Yes.
Now, and a lot of people think that the main job of a flight attendant is service.
No.
But it is not
It's
service.
not so.
You know, so this is for the audience as well, that it is not
Yes.
service. The main job of the flight attendant is security. So the
Yes.
first
And
is
handling emergencies.
yes, handling emergencies,
Yes.
aviation
Safe
security,
evacuation of
evacuate.
passengers.
Yes, absolutely, and we are trained in that. And the second is medical emergencies. If there is a medical emergency, then how do you handle it?
Yes.
The last is service. This, you know,
Yeah,
and
that's the least of the thing.
this
Anybody can do it.
anybody can do it, right? So we are
Yeah.
actually trained, and many people do not know these things, that every single time that we actually sat, I worked for an international airline.
Yeah.
So every single time we actually sat, you know, we went for a flight, we had to, any random emergency and safety question could be asked.
Yes.
So for example, where is the oxygen container for this in this cabin? You have to know exactly where it is kept.
Yeah.
Where is this in this kept? What will you do if you find a passenger choking? What will you do if this is happening to your passenger? We are asked, we have to answer them. If we fail even answering one question, the head purser, or the, you know, the main person who's managing the crew, has the right to demote you. You will not.
Exactly.
So people have
It's very
no
important,
idea how
yes.
strict it is. And a lot of girls used to have shivers because they
Yes.
weren't confident. A lot of some of them even fail. They don't pass these exams. So it's very, very tough. Anyways, coming back to you, what was the most significant difference you observed between military and civil aviation?
Aviation uh, is a risky sort of a business. Risky in the sense that if something goes wrong, then one is likely to lose one's life or limb.
Correct.
Okay, so
That's if you're flying solo. But yeah, you know, you will. But if you're flying in civil and carrying passengers,
it
then
is multifariously bigger problem. Then
correct.
you're not just risking your life, you're risking the life of so many passengers.
Correct.
So I'm calling it risky from that point of view.
Correct.
I'm not calling it risky from the point of view of the number of accidents that take place, because that way roads are far riskier than aviation.
Correct.
In any field where risk is more, you'll find that standards of training and discipline are high, not just in aviation. Uh, a person learning to do welding, let's say, you know, he's handling oxyacetylene flame, and he can hurt himself, he can hurt others. So you'll find that there are very strong procedures, SOPs, what to do, when to do. So we have these systems for safe flying. And having flown in the military for about 17 years, when I went to civil, I found that as far as the discipline of flying is concerned, there was hardly any change.
Okay.
Because civil aviation also lays as much stress on safety, on a pilot's, you know, readiness in every which way, than does military aviation. So that was not the.
That was okay.
But where the difference came in was that a military pilot perhaps is very mission oriented.
There's a
He's
difference.
willing to lay down his life.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
That's a very big difference.
Yeah, it's a very big difference.
It's a risk taker.
He's
and
a risk
willing
taker.
willing to sacrifice.
Yeah. In the same breath, I'd like to add that even military aviation does not encourage or tolerate any violation of safety rules.
Absolutely not.
It is not. But where the mission, passion for mission accomplishment comes in, is going that extra yard. You know, exposing yourself to that much little more danger, you know, while remaining within the parameters of the flight safety norms. You don't want to lose the aircraft. You don't want to lose your co-pilot, or you don't want to lose yourself. So that is there. But that is not perhaps required in civil aviation, I could say. And also a question of loyalty. You know, some of the biggest problems military pilots face when they enter civil aviation is that they suffer a great deal because they are loyal to the company. They suffer
Mm.
promotions, they suffer salaries,
Mm.
they that in one trait of being
Yeah.
loyal to the company where you are
Yeah.
serving
Yeah.
is exploited by the civilian operators.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I learned this the hard way when my senior
Hmm.
military aviator and Air Force guy,
Hmm.
he told me, that
Hmm.
don't suffer all this nonsense. If this
Hmm.
company is not realizing your talent and not
Hmm.
paying you enough,
Hmm.
please leave
Leave.
and
Yeah.
join another company.
I know. I
So in
know.
civil corporate world, the growth is by leaving companies.
Hmm. Hmm.
In military, it is not that.
In psychology, we teach this in relationship management and how you train people, how to treat you. Do you know this?
Okay.
Yes, this is basic psychology, and so in psychology, you're taught that it is you who trains people on how you should be treated.
Exactly.
So what you've said is
Exactly.
exactly that.
Do unto others,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, so we train people on how we want to be treated, and
Yeah.
sometimes you think that you're being loyalty, and the other person, you were giving them your loyalty, and the other person is recognizing that. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't recognize that, and they
Yes.
use it as, and they think it's a weakness to be exploited.
Yes.
So, and at that point, then you're taught absence is the way that you can, make your presence felt.
Yes. A lovely play of words.
Yes.
Very lovely. Yeah.
Yes. And in fact, talking of all of this and the experience, you've written a very interesting article, and you have said that the rules of flight safety are written in blood, and pilot experience is no guarantee of safety. And you've written something that I had no idea, because all our life we were told, at least even as an air hostess or a flight attendant or as a pilot, that the maximum number of experience that you have, that's how your promotion is, that's how you're seen as a sturdy, reliable person. And can you explain that to
See,
us,
the
why
thing
it is?
is that here we have to understand what is experience.
Okay.
Okay. I'll give you an example.
Huh.
And this is a real,
Uh-huh.
real
Please.
incident that happened.
Okay.
There's a person called Wing Commander. He's now retired,
Mm-hmm.
SS Dholia.
Mm-hmm.
When he was doing basic flying
Okay.
in Bidar, we have Air Force elementary training,
Sure.
and after 9 hours of training, you're sent your first solo if you're found fit. On his first solo,
Huh.
he had an engine failure. Okay. And it's a single engine aircraft, it's a trainer aircraft. He had 9 hours of experience and he brought the aircraft down safely.
Wow.
Okay.
Marvelous.
Then he went to Air Force Academy in Dindigul, where
Okay.
they do their jet training, next stage of. On his first solo on Kiran aircraft, he had an engine failure. Look at the providence. Huh?
They say lightning doesn't strike twice.
It
Here it has
does.
struck
Yeah.
twice.
And this gentleman, he brought that aircraft down safely.
Wow.
Okay.
Marvelous again.
Now, Air Force has a rule
Yeah.
that one of the parameters of getting a Vayu Sena medal
Yeah.
is if you bring a stricken aircraft down safely.
Now he's gotten two.
Okay.
Yeah.
If he was an officer, he was just a cadet. So he is not attracted to the Air Force, privileges and perks. He was just a cadet. He missed out on two Vayu Sena medals.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Now, when this person, say, has 2000 hours, because this event has happened to him in 9 hours and 60 hours.
Correct.
Now, this fellow's flying experience is far, far more than a person who has not experienced an emergency.
Correct.
I am not blaming those who have not met with an emergency.
Correct.
I'm not praising this fellow for getting two emergencies. I mean, he
Correct.
didn't plan for
Correct.
it.
Correct.
Like there are instances where a pilot lives his own life 40 years, a real emergency has not occurred to me, like an
Correct.
engine failure or some
Correct.
serious thing.
Correct.
I have had minor issues which are not very dangerous.
Correct.
But when a person has only seen emergencies in simulators and he's got 20,000 hours, let us say, this person is very likely to be unable to handle an actual emergency
Because you've only
because
seen
he has
it,
never experienced it.
experienced it. Yeah.
All his life, everything has been hunky dory. All lights are green. All instruments are working all the time,
Because
which is
that's in
which
the
is what
simulation.
happens
Yes, yes,
most of the times.
yes.
So when I say that experience is no guarantee
Huh.
of safety,
Huh.
is because there's a degree of complacency which sets in.
Uh-huh.
Researchers have found out after statistics
Uh-huh.
that there is a danger zone
Mm-hmm.
of experience that leads to accidents.
I think you've shown this in your article. It's called the bathtub chart. Can you
Yeah.
explain that to us? Is it applicable for everybody or just for pilots?
See, the bathtub chart is because the shape of the graph is like
A
a
bath.
bathtub.
Okay.
So the graph starts from somewhere up on the on the y-axis. Then it goes down with it's against number of flying hours versus number of accidents. So it comes down and then it flattens out a bit and then it starts climbing.
Okay.
That means those who are less experienced can meet with more accidents.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And then it flattens out. When you reached a certain degree of, confidence, competence, expertise, experience, then chances of you meeting with an accident are less. But when you cannot carry this on in a flat graph. After some time, complacency starts setting in. You start taking shortcuts. You start believing, everything happens to others. Accident will never happen to me. Okay, and then the graph rises. Like a swimmer, a learning swimmer will never drown. Okay, it's only the experienced pilots who lose their way, in military aviation.
Even pilots who are flying their own aircrafts, I mean, there are many. For example, the Kennedy family, the last surviving, I mean, son of President Kennedy,
Correct.
he died flying his aircraft. And apparently, what we read in the reports was that after they have enough experience, they stop trusting the gadgets, what the gadgets are showing, and somehow they start trusting their intuition more, which is the danger
Absolutely.
zone.
It, yeah, this is a subject which is now established. That means it is recognized
Yeah,
that there is such a flaw.
there is.
And this is called facts are different from feelings.
So this is what was quoted. We don't know what the reality was, but at certain point, either there was a malfunction in the gadgets because there was a storm, or they claim they trusted their intuition. So nobody really knows the reality, but this is also something, and that comes from, I guess.
See, one of the biggest aviation disasters in Indian history,
Which one?
when we lost the first jumbo jet,
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, from Bombay at night, a 747 jumbo Ashoka, I think, took off. And as you know, Bombay being on the coast, the runway is east-west. So you take off and you get into the sea, if that runway is in use. So this fellow took off. It was a muggy night, clouds were low, and horizon was not visible, and pilots were to rely on instruments. And 747 is not an old some bomber of Second World War. It's pretty well appointed aircraft with all the gizmos. So he was supposed to, after gaining some height, he was supposed to turn left. And the aircraft inadvertently had a wing low. So it was, the pilot felt that the left wing is going low. Actually, it was not. It was just his feeling. So he started correcting for it. Okay. And he corrected it, and the instrument were telling him something else. But he said, no, no, I'm feeling that, the wings are still not level. And the aircraft artificial horizon is showing this kind of bank. but he is not believing in that. He is still trying to correct it. And the aircraft went into the sea. Everybody was killed.
So here, there was a very interesting study done, and it is also mentioned in this book by Malcolm Gladwell. I think the book is called Tipping Point.
Yeah, I've not read the
You've
book, but
not
I've
read the
heard
book,
the
but
book,
you've heard.
heard
So
about the
he,
book.
he talks about the aviation industry, and he says in this that there is a hierarchical system in societies. And the Koreans were one of the worst. So, and this is not to disparage them or anything, but he mentions Korean Air and Japanese Air, and and I'll tell you because I worked with Middle Eastern Airlines. So they said that the hierarchy was as such that the younger officer could not say anything to the senior officer. So, because in the hierarchical system it was always there that we can't. And I remember this one case study that he had mentioned that a senior pilot had slapped his officer, the
Subordinate.
subordinate officer, the second officer, or whosoever it was, the first officer, for not adhering to the hierarchical system.
Yeah.
And in fact, he speaks of even language, wherein even in Hindi we have this hierarchical system: tu, tum,
Up.
up. And why I'm making this is because this is not in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit, everything is tvam. Even Bhagwan is tvam.
Tvam, yes.
Tvameva mata, tvameva pita.
Yeah.
आप माता पिता नहीं है. Wherever this hierarchical system will seep in people, you will have these problems. In fact, there was an unwritten rule, and I was told this because in the airlines that I worked, also had a very similar accident, exactly the same kind of accident that you were talking about, that the first officer was not able to tell his senior, and they both were Arabs, so did not have the guts to tell him that you're wrong. He could have saved, but then what would have happened to his career? So they could not say. As a result, there was an unwritten rule that they did not allow, let's say, two locals to fly together. And by locals, I mean
Yeah,
the same
same.
nationality, or two Arabs, or not that they don't fly, but so then they would always have this balance of one foreigner and one local, or mix the nationalities. And the other thing they said was that no local language speaking. The communication would always be in English, reducing the local language hierarchical inbuilt system.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting
But one thing is there that some races
Yeah.
like Japanese,
Yeah.
Koreans, they are very very conscious of this thing.
Yes. And
But
they I think they banned Korean Air or one of these airlines. I don't know. I read this book around 10 years ago or something. They banned one of these airlines from even flying over certain destinations. They couldn't go over Europe, or I don't remember the details, but they
yeah,
would ban from certain
yeah.
airspaces because of the number of accidents they were having.
But this issue of captain
Yeah.
and first officer
Yeah.
relationship
Yeah.
is an acknowledged global problem.
Acha, is it?
Yeah, because the captain is the captain. Like he is in charge of everything on the aircraft.
Correct.
Okay. And this is a sort of a naval custom because the captain word itself has been taken from the Navy. And they, unless uh, total authority is given to the captain, there are likely to be more problems. So that has filtered down to aviation. And first officers are rarely encouraged. They are rather put down harshly in the cockpit when they are trying to suggest something or speak up or something. So they are supposed to be just doing what they are told to do.
Okay.
Another tragic accident of Indian aviation was in Mangalore. If you remember, an aircraft coming in from Abu Dhabi or somewhere in UAE or Middle East country crashed in Mangalore and everybody died. An amateurish accident that anybody, even a child, looking at the approach the aircraft was making, would have said, yeah, this is a high overshooting approach. He'll never make it. And the co-pilot, realizing that it's a very dangerous approach and he should go around, could not tell him that. And he died. He could have taken over the controls. There is a provision. There is a provision that captain is the almighty God in the cockpit. But should something, this provision has actually come in for medical reasons. Should something happen to the captain where he is incapacitated, then there is a procedure whereby the co-pilot or the first officer takes over captaincy of the aircraft. He announces it. He tells him the reason, and then he takes over. So this was a classic case of a pilot who was either too tired, too sleepy, because that's what the official version which has come out is that he was not scheduled to fly this flight.
Oh.
The regular pilot reported sick or something, and this fellow was woken up. It was a midnight, 2 o'clock departure or something from there, and early morning arrival here. So he was just woken up from his bed and brought in, and he had to fly. He was very senior, I think.
So he was on standby that was
East
he on
European
standby?
pilot.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Was he on standby that night or
Apparently he was not,
okay.
or he perhaps was, but he took it lightly and he may have had a drink, or he may have slept late or late night, whatever. We don't know the facts. But this fellow was making approaches. He made two approaches. First one, then the ATC told him to go around.
Okay.
And the second one, he disregarded the ATC and he made an attempt to land on less than half the runway.
That's arrogance.
And he went into the Nala.
That's
Everybody
arrogance.
died.
That's arrogance.
Yeah, there's arrogance. And this is the problem of what you're saying, between pilot and co-pilot. The communications must be respectful.
Yeah.
The captains must respect. Just because he's younger or less experienced doesn't mean he can't observe something which is going wrong.
Correct.
For that, there's no age.
Correct. I know this because I remember there was a flight that I was on, and there was a person who was senior to me, and and they said, "Look, there's a very funny person in the cabin. Let's come. I'll show you." And there was a very long haul flight. By long haul, I mean almost. I think the flying time was 9-10 hours. So you can imagine we were getting overtime. So it would have surpassed 16 hours flight. And in a 9 to 10 hour flight, you are just, in 1.5 hours, the food and all is done. So you just sit, and it's very tiring to even sit in the aircraft and then constantly roam around. And then the pressure and the so many of them. And it was night time. So I remember going through the cabin and this person telling me there's something, and I looked at that person and he said, "Isn't this man funny?" He thought it was funny. He was laughing at him. And I saw that man and I saw that was an emergency. That gentleman was, I said, no.
Hyperventilating?
No, he wasn't hyperventilating. I think he was diabetic. No,
okay.
He was diabetic and he had gone into hypoglycemia. And I was in my early 20s. This gentleman was much senior to me, and he thought it was funny. So he showed the gentleman to me. We had an emergency landing because of that.
Achha.
Because I recognized that if we don't help this person is going to die. Because I saw his eyes were glazed and he was almost comatose. And so we called for a doctor in flight. And it is one of those emergency flights that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we had to. And this doctor then claimed that maybe he's on drugs.
Okay.
He was not on drugs. Diabetic. I know that because we've had diabetics. I've had, people have diabetes in my family, and just by the virtue of knowing it in your family,
you could identify.
I could identify because we've handled these
Diagnosed
situations.
it,
We've handled these situations as a young kid. I've handled, known about these situations. We actually had an emergency landing in India. We got him here. He was alive and he stopped breathing in midair and all of that. And we gave him, a CPR. We were pumping his heart artificially outside, CPR.
CPR, yeah.
So it was quite. I still remember it was quite strange, but at least yeah. And this is when I'm just adding
Yeah,
to what you.
that's yeah. Being young doesn't mean that you're incompetent,
Yes,
and being old doesn't mean you're
you
experienced.
know better.
That bathtub thing again comes in.
Yes, I remember. And I was so shocked. I said, "What is wrong with you? This is an emergency." Anyway, so
Yeah,
what advice would you give to young pilots or those interested in pursuing a career in aviation?
it's a very good thing because as aviation exploded, see, when I joined civil aviation, just within a few years, I joined in 2000, and 2004, Air Deccan was launched. I was in Deccan Aviation at that time. So I got sucked into the core team which was launching this airline. And from that time onwards, India has been the largest purchaser of civil aircraft.
Wow.
There have been occasions when at the Paris Air Show and
Yeah.
the Farnborough Air Show, both biggest air shows in the world, roughly 80 to 90% of purchases of aircraft are being done by India. Air India has recently ordered 500 aircraft.
Wow.
Okay, and India's really, the aviation is exploding. And with every airline aeroplane is inducted, you need 9 pilots,
Yeah.
4.5 per seat
Yeah.
for calculation and for
Yeah.
provisioning purposes.
Yeah.
So there's a huge demand of pilots, and me, because of my association with aviation, my friends, colleagues, neighbors, everybody whose child is in that age group, they keep asking me this question. So it's a very topical thing. Uh, what happens is that becoming a pilot is a very, very flamboyant and a glamorous job, good
Correct.
salary,
Correct.
working in a sanitized environment, no
Correct.
hassles,
Correct.
thing like that. And pilots are rumored to have very good life, thing like that. Whatever. But what happens is that there is one aspect of civil aviation.
Yeah.
It applies to military aviation also. But because military aviation, you're not paying for the training, and should something happen to you, you get compensation and you can get employed elsewhere. But in civil aviation, a pilot who has to undergo a medical exam, if he's 37 or below, or 36 and below, then aviation medical is once a year.
Okay.
After 37, it is twice a year, every 6 months. And should something happen to you, then your license is lost. Depends on, I mean, it may be lost for 6 months, it may be lost for forever, or maybe you're only qualified to fly as co-pilot or some kinds of aircraft. But it's a big setback.
Yes.
And if a young person who joins aviation directly after his school, because all you require is 10 plus 2 and PCM, maths. So there have been instances where their children have joined aviation and they start getting good salaries, they get used to good life, and then after 4 years, they find heart murmur or some hole in the heart, things which you can not predict. Okay, or you could meet with an accident on the road, you can injure your leg or something, anything can happen to you. When such a person who has no other qualification, when he loses his flying job, then it's a disaster for him, if he's married, for his wife, his parents, everybody. Because when a person who's well off financially, when he loses that source of income, then it's very difficult for him to adjust to low paying job
Correct.
or thing like that.
Correct.
So my advice to young people who want to become pilots is that get a qualification. Because all said and done, flying is a motor skill. Motor skill is something you can learn. Okay, and
It's like dancing.
it's
Yeah.
it's like dancing, and there's no hurry to do it,
Correct.
because there's a time for education.
Correct.
A person who first becomes a pilot after 4 years loses his job, then if he wants to do degree, for engineering or something for his vocation,
Correct.
that's putting the cart before
So,
the
is
horse.
this your advice only to pilots, or would you then generalize this to other people as well?
Yes, I would. I mean, it makes sense for any like we had a case when my boss in the army, his son went and joined merchant navy
Uh-huh.
straight from school, and he ran away from home. And in merchant navy, the salaries are even better.
Correct.
Okay, so he was getting in dollars, and he was visiting the world and all that. And after 1.5 years, he was declared medically unfit.
What was the medical condition?
I think he had some heart issue.
Oh, poor thing. Hmm.
And this is also lifestyle. Once again, young people, it's like how celebrities become drug addicts,
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
in the film industry, in
Yes.
Hollywood, or
Yes.
even in India.
Yes.
When you
Cocaine
start getting a lot
addicts.
of money very
Yeah.
early, then it's a problem. So it's the same thing, and it applies to all young people.
In fact, even for flight attendants, this is a general
Must
rule.
be.
It is told to us by our well wishers
Yes.
that do not fly for more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Max, if you want to stretch it, do it for 3 years. Because once you get used to flying, you become very senior, then it's very difficult for you to transition. And then the
Correct.
job opportunities for you, if you do not have multiple degrees, or if you're not talented enough, they get
Exactly.
lesser and lesser and lesser.
Exactly.
Because your age is going and your capability, of course, it's not to say
Yeah.
that they are not capable ladies. They're very, very capable. And some of them I know have gone ahead and had companies. Some of them have had brilliant careers, all of that. I mean, I myself had a decent career. So, why should I? But I left at 2 years because I knew this is something that I want to do for 2 years or or something like that, and not longer than that. So this is something,
Exactly.
and anyways, I have, I
See,
can't come,
demotion is a
yeah,
state of mind also.
correct.
My one nephew,
Yeah.
he was a salesman in
Hmm.
a car showroom in Jaipur,
Hmm.
and that car was selling Maseratis.
Ah.
Okay,
Huh.
so he was there for a few months, and that showroom closed down because who purchases Maseratis?
Yeah.
Now he was being offered very good jobs by other
Car.
car dealerships,
Yeah.
but for him it was appearing like a demotion,
Oh, of course it
and he
is.
didn't take it.
Yes, yes, yes. I
Much
understand
to
that.
my, I was telling him, better, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There you were perhaps getting 2 lakhs, and now somebody is giving you 60,000. Take it,
Take.
because sooner or later you'll rise to some level.
Yeah.
But he didn't take.
Yes.
He's
This
sitting at home.
this this is a problem that we faced as well since we are discussing aviation. Once you work with an international airline, I had many offers to join local airlines and I had to decline, or to teach, and I
Yes,
declined numerous offers because I felt it was a demotion for me.
correct, correct.
So no, so
And it
I do
happens.
understand that
It's
sentiment.
psychological.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So let's talk about your personal stories and experiences here. Would you share any particular? So we've spoken about good experiences. You've said, for
My leg length.
your leg length, So any particular challenging or harrowing experience you had as a pilot? Any failure or anything that you want to discuss?
Helicopter flying, see, is very different from airline flying or fixed wing aeroplanes, because by uh, by the nature of work of an aeroplane is that it goes from one sanitized area, flies through a sanitized atmosphere. By sanitized, I don't mean it's been sprayed by, some medicines or something.
Yeah.
By sanitized, I mean it is safe and secure.
Okay.
Okay, like an airport or the runway and all. Nobody, Tom, Dick, and Harry cannot go there. Dogs can't come, cattle can't come, and so it is secure for operations. But a helicopter pilot is operating from helipads. Okay, he's of course operating from airfields also, but he's ultimately not for going from airfield to airfield, because where an aeroplane can go, a helicopter is a economically not a viable thing. So most helicopter operations involve, fancy experiences. You know, a helicopter is coming, he's carrying a VIP,
Yeah.
the VIP reception party is there,
Yeah.
and there are tents, and there's, you know, tables laid out with tea arrangements and things like that. And those ignorant people who keep it too close to the helipad.
Oh, and then
Oh,
it'll
when the
fly.
helicopter comes, things flying. Or there'll be, you know, cattle can come. Or if it is, you know, dusty area,
Dust.
they will, on insistence of the operator, they will water the helipad, you know, sprinkle water on it. But if the timing is wrong,
Yeah.
you know, if it's done too early, it dries
It
off,
dries,
you know,
yes,
and by the
yes.
time the helicopter comes, they say, sir, we watered it, but. But one harrowing experience that I had was that I was flying Hema Malini ji
Oh.
in Bihar elections.
Oh, how
Okay.
interesting.
And I was flying her for 2-3 days. And on one particular day, Shatrughan Sinha ji came. And they were both flying, sitting in it's a small helicopter. Okay. So I was there, and Hema Malini ji is sitting next to me in the cockpit. And the crowd that came at the helipad, you know, after the speech, to
Say bye to
say bye to
her.
them and to just look at them. You know, they are very big celebrities.
Correct.
And it was a small town. So it was very difficult for me to start the helicopter.
Because
When the blades start turning,
Yeah.
and in a helicopter the tail rotor is pretty close
correct,
to
correct.
the ground.
Yeah.
We have had an accident of a pilot
Oh.
of the helicopter he was flying. In order to control the crowd, once again in East UP or Bihar, you know, that tail rotor is running and crowd is coming. So the tail rotor at full RPM is not visible.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it becomes invisible.
Oh,
So to save the crowd, he got down of the helicopter. The co-pilot is there. He is handling the controls. He said, "Hold on." He opened the door. He came out and he was pushing the crowd back. There's a tail rotor there. And he walked into the tail rotor.
Oh no.
And he died. Okay.
That's
And
horrible.
this happened in Bihar elections where I was flying. And in the news, they scrolling, you know, accident, pilot died, Bihar. I was flying in Bihar, and my wife was in Chennai. And when she saw this news, she didn't see, the neighbor saw it. They said, "आपने ये देखा news? कौन है ये pilot देखो?" So then she was so worried, and she found out. So these things can happen. These are very. It was very difficult to throw the crowd. Ultimately, I said that if you want to die, you die. I'm starting. I told the crowd, "ये चलेगा. If you walk into it, you're going to kill yourself."
In Banaras, Banaras area, they don't get off the road as well, if you will.
I know.
They don't. They just don't
Bihar,
care
I've had
and listen. And they are, you know, when you talk to them, you have to be. They're as people, they're very polite.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't listen to
don't
instructions and they don't listen to horns.
One candidate, you know, what happens in is election flyings, you have this helicopter dedicated to a leader, but many times they pick up the local candidate for MLA. Or something. So now this fellow, we are flying at 1,000 feet, and they wanted to helicopter to land here, whereas the helipad was say 5 kilometers away.
Oh my God.
But he wanted to land there.
Why? Because it was.
He said कि नहीं यहाँ पर ये मेरा गांव है यहाँ उतारो, you know, something like that. Pilot is saying कि helipad is there, I can't land here. This fellow opened the door and jumped out from 1,000 feet. He died. Experiences, harrowing experiences, there's no shortage.
This happened with you, or this
No,
happened
not with me, but a sister company, not even in my company. Because when state elections take place,
Yeah.
one is national election, then the
Yeah.
helicopter get, you know, frittered away.
The MLA just opened.
Candidate. He was not an
He was
MLA.
not an MLA.
Candidate.
So he was a candidate. He opened
The door and he jumped out. He jumped out.
Oh
मेरे को यहाँ ही
my
उतरना है.
What an idiot.
So.
What did he think he was?
I don't
Tarzan,
know.
Superman?
I don't know. Some people are inexplicable, you know, totally.
So, we've discussed at length about your experience flying and very, very interesting episodes and anecdotes. I love them.
Thank you.
How did you get into writing? How did you become such a prolific writer, writing on so many different subjects? I mean, just take a look at the subjects. You were talking about future warfare, you're talking of mental slavery, you're discussing things like national education policy, you're just discussing the Hindu genocide in Kashmir. You have just so much experience and so much knowledge. How did you get into writing? What was it?
No, Neena, what happened was that we have COVID to blame for that.
Okay.
Uh, I was, like all of us, we are confined to our homes in COVID, and I was learning how to do the dishes and things like that, becoming a sous chef. But one fine day, I got a call from a friend of mine, who's the chief editor of Indian Military Review. And he's my course mate, Major General Ravi Arora. So he asked me that, Shaili, would you like to write an article for Indian Military Review? So I said, yeah, but I don't know, I've never written one. So he said, no, I know you'll be able to write, and I'll give you a subject. There is a thing called indoctrination.
Correct. Okay.
Okay. Now, if you can give me a minute or two.
Yeah.
Indoctrination comes from the word of doctrine.
Okay.
Okay. And in order to understand what is a doctrine, I'll just tell you two more terms. One is a concept and the other is a design.
Concept and design.
Concept, design, and then comes doctrine.
Doctrines. So which comes first?
So I'll just tell you.
Huh.
First comes concept. Okay, so let's say you want to construct a house.
Okay.
You got a plot of land, you want to get a house made.
Huh.
So you call an architect. Okay. So what you tell him, what kind of house you want, that is the concept. The person giving the concept is like Queen of Sheba. I want this, I want that, I want this. It should be like this. It's like a girl giving tailor master instructions. No, isko yahan se karo, isko wahan se karo. Something like that.
Correct.
But the job will be done, the design will be made by the architect. Okay. So, for example, in the concept, a person can say, कि भाई, when you make my house, I want it to made in such a way that when I drive my car inside, I don't have to reverse it.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want it like that.
It's a fantastic idea. Huh?
So what the architect will do,
Is make the
that
design.
he'll make a design where you have in and out gate.
Correct.
Okay. So your car will enter like this,
And
stand in a porch,
yeah.
and for out. So
Correct.
he has met your concept
Correct.
and he's given you a design.
Correct.
But when a design, over a period of improvement, when it reaches a stage when people think this is the best way to do this, then that design becomes a doctrine. Okay, then it is accepted as the correct or a good workable design. You don't have to design it anymore. It's already there. Like in the 60s, 50s, cars, they will come in different shapes and sizes.
Absolutely. And they looked wonderful.
They look wonderful, beautiful.
And their gates would also open from the other end.
Yeah, different, absolutely.
I loved that era,
Yes,
by the way.
I used to love that.
The lovely bright red cars, the
Exactly.
Corvettes, and stunning, I have to say. I miss
Really?
that era. I don't like the cars today.
So what happened? These designs, we call them designs,
Yeah, of course.
technically.
Yes.
Because these designs were made by different designers for different companies. And from a distance you could say, that's a Chevrolet, that's a General Motor, this is a Plymouth, this is a Ford, from a distance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Today, those designs have become doctrines. So, the shape of an SUV is for all manufacturers is the same. It's very difficult. You remove the logo of Honda and you put Hyundai, you'll not be able to tell the difference.
Toyota and Maruti.
Any. all hatchbacks are same.
Same.
All mid-size, all sedans are same.
Same.
All SUVs are same. All MUVs are same.
Yeah.
So, when it becomes a doctrine,
So the cars today, you are saying, are following
Indoctrinated
they're
design. They are
indoctrinated.
indoctrinated.
Okay.
Okay.
So how does that come into?
No, I was explaining you how the word doctrine has come in.
Yeah.
But indoctrination is associated with the mind. Okay. You indoctrinate a mind to a particular design.
Correct.
I just want to tell you one difference, which was slipping my mind. Whatever we read, that means somebody else's thought.
Yes.
Whatever you read is indoctrination for you. This is very profound, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you read a book, or when you see a TV show, or when you watch a movie or read a novel, you are imbibing somebody's thoughts.
Correct.
Okay. And that is not knowledge. That is indoctrination.
Okay.
Okay.
How would you differentiate? Okay.
Knowledge. Now, this is my, I have not read it anywhere. This is just my deduction. Knowledge is what you acquire yourself. For example, if you are, as a child, you're going and you see a flower and you smell it and you find, it's good smell. Now that smell for you is knowledge because you acquired it yourself. Okay. But when a school teacher is teaching some subject to a child, and if a related subject is being discussed at home, okay, now the child has heard this or learned this in school already.
You are indoctrinating young boys to become terrorists, and to that makes complete sense.
It
If the
doesn't apply to children.
Okay,
It applies to everybody.
It applies to everybody.
Everybody.
Then how do we differentiate between indoctrination and influence? What is the role of influence? Because what is the difference? So why I'm saying this is because there's influence and there's persuasion. So when we see advertising, advertising is persuasion. We are telling you, let's say Pepsi, Cola, whatever. So it's being flashed, it's there on television. It's persuasion. Buy me, I give you this, I give you that. This is the benefit. Tide loge to aisa hoga.
See,
This is persuasion. Influence is nobody is telling you anything, but in your mind there is somebody whose opinion you value, whether that person tells you or doesn't tell you directly to do this or that, you will do thinking what this person is going to think of me. That's influence. So if you understand the difference between persuasion and influence.
Yeah.
What would this, so there are many books written on it. So for example, there is this book called What Would Audrey Do? Audrey Hepburn.
Okay.
So if she had to dress, how would she dress? So this we use in fashion. So we follow, even though they don't tell us how to dress, we follow certain role models, what we call. So they are people we get influenced by, correct? How do you differentiate between indoctrination, influence, and I've told you, I've explained. Persuasion is not.
I think when I was trying to distinguish between indoctrination and knowledge, I was trying to say that it is easy for a mind to accept what it is told. It is a human nature.
Yeah.
Okay. And when we read something, we tend to believe that this is correct. So when we read a book or when we read a newspaper, it once we have read it, we think it is our knowledge. It is ours, our opinion. Okay. And indoctrination is being done exploiting this sentiment. Okay. On every issue of India, let's say, any issue, you will find articles written in New York Times and Washington Post
Yeah. What do
and
they
London
have?
Times.
Yeah. What do they have to do
What
with
do
us?
they have to do with it?
Correct.
But what they have to do is that there is a huge population who reads those articles. And in India, it is fashionable to, quote.
Yeah.
They see BBC, they
Yeah.
see, Voice of America and things like that. And what they are saying is considered correct, and therefore they are getting indoctrinated. So when somebody raises in any panel discussion, let's say,
Correct.
somebody says something,
Yeah.
They'll say, no, Washington Post is saying like this. How dare you say this? New York Times is saying this.
And you know, I always notice that quoting a Western article is more authentic than quoting an Indian article
I
or
have
an
written a whole
opinion.
article on slavery.
Yeah, I know I
Mental
was going to
slavery.
tell you about that mental slavery, because this is a kind of mental slavery. And you know,
Yeah.
in your articles you've actually written like that, and I think you've written this on Indians as well, that aren't proud of their heredity. Most slavery is forced. India's mental slavery is willfully embraced. That's a
Correct.
very bold statement, but
Yes.
I think I kind of
We are
concur with
very
it.
proud of our
Yeah,
slavery.
slavery. Yeah,
Yes.
it's you know,
But
it's
I don't blame some of the so-called brown sahibs. I blame myself. I blame virtually everybody. Our psyche. I'm from a generation, where uh, pride in anything which is foreign, foreign, P-H-O-R-E-N.
foreign.
We have to be have that thing in, oh, it's very good, quality is good, just because it's from
It's
foreign.
foreign.
If it is Indian, it is desi, and we are kalus. Okay, with this indoctrination I have been brought up,
Yeah.
and my generation.
Yeah.
Okay, some of it has been rubbed onto perhaps your generation, very small quantity, but yes.